Good morning, good morning, good morning. Oh, do you guys hear me pretty well on this? Yes. Wow. It's a Saturday morning. And we've gotten up pretty early for this morning. So I want everybody to stand up. I want you to stand up. Just stand up. Just stand up. Stand up. Stand up because this is a day that we've never seen before. This is a day that we've never experienced before. This is a time that we're going to receive information that we've never received before. In order to gain something, you've got to do something. In order to win the game, you got to be in the game, right? And each of you have chosen this morning to come and get on the court, get on the field so that you can win the game, because knowledge is what? Knowledge is what? And you are in a place of empowerment. And for that, I am so ever grateful. So because you did get up early this morning to get your day started, I need for you to give yourselves a big round of applause on the back of your back. Pat on the back, pat on the back, pat on the back. Now give yourselves a big round of applause because you deserve it. Deserve it. So you are in for a treat this morning. You may be seated. We are just waiting for a few of our young people. They're enriching, enhancing their beautiful black books. We love illustrated books because we are people of expressions. We love the way our stories are told. Our stories are told through words. Our stories are told through pictures. Our stories are told through songs, right? And we are in a place that it is going to help us understand what we've experienced over the last 400 years. So I would like to ask our owner, where's Mr. Dan Moore Sr.? Mr. Moore, if you would come up, please come up, because when you are in someone else's house, you want to show your attitude of gratitude. And Mr. Moore has put his heart and his soul in this place to help us understand our story. Mr. Moore, please come over and address this incredible audience. See, this is the future. Our children are 22% of our population, but they are 100% of our future. So I want you to tell them about what they will experience once we have the conversation in the museum.
First of all, welcome to the Apex. How many of you are here for the first time? Wow, okay. Come back and see us. Apex Museum was started in 1978. And I'm not a museum person at all, like zero. When I came here, I was invited to a banquet honoring Dr. Benjamin Mays. And I asked myself the question, who will remember him 10 years from now? And the second question I asked myself was, why doesn't Atlanta, Georgia, of all the cities in the nation, not have a Black History Museum? So I started it 4 months later. Museum person, I'm not. Filmmaker, I am. So we started doing films to talk about Auburn Avenue first. We had Cicely Tyson narrate a film for us about Auburn Avenue. In 1957, Fortune magazine called Auburn Avenue the richest Negro street in the world. I look at Auburn Avenue today and I ask myself the question, if former slaves and former sharecroppers could build Auburn Avenue and make it great, then how come today's technology and today's African Americans can't keep it that way? So I'm concerned because when I look around at Auburn Avenue now, I say to myself, if former slaves and former sharecroppers could build this, then why aren't we doing much better today? Hopefully we will. We also plan to expand on the parking lot with the new building. It'll be a walk through history like Epcot Center. And we intend to let you know that you are a part of this rich history. What you will see around you in this room was brought to us by Asa Hilliard, professor from Georgia State. And every time I saw him, he would say to me, Dan, whatever you do, never let them begin our history with slavery. So we have this part here talking about African civilizations and how today's technology cannot even match what they did hundreds of years ago. When you walk down this hallway, you'll see black inventors. It'll blow your mind. You see what we have done to make our mark on society. That hall's to table of black inventors. And the room right around the corner from that is Women in STEM. So we're glad to have you here. We're proud to have you here. And this is your home as well as mine.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Wow, incredible. See, Mr. Moore wasn't just talking about it. He identified an issue, a problem. He wasn't just concerned about him and his area. He was concerned about yours as well, because it is so absolutely imperative and vital that we understand our stories. So, Mr. Moore, we salute you, right? Because you came in and you did something. You didn't just talk about it, but you did something. And young people, that's what we need for you to do. We need for you to stand up, and we need for you to do what's right in our heritage, and don't let anybody tell you anything different. It is important. And don't allow them to have us to forget it. Mr. Moore is going to ensure that that's not going to happen. I need for you all to pick up the mantle and ensure it doesn't happen. So welcome to the 2023 Black History Program of the Stewart Foundation. I am Gwen Mason. I am the co-founder and executive director of the Stewart Foundation. We always love our Black History Program. Yes, they may celebrate it these 28, 29 days of the year, but for us, we're 365 Black, right? So our history is every single day. So, without further ado, one of the things that we love, as we share it with you, we love our books, because our books tell our stories. I would like for you to put your hands together for our literary director, Miss Angela Reed of Righteous Readers.
Good morning, everybody. Some of you came in here looking kind of sleepy. I hope you've awakened by now. The cold should have done that. First of all, I'd like to say that for every youth who is here, I'd like you to go to the table behind the panel back there and make sure you take home a book. I want you all to know that these books are donated by myself and other members of the Stewart Foundation, so they are for the children. Those of you that are adults, you can take pictures of the books you want to buy, or you may and I encourage you to do that, because I think that we should support our Black writers. There are so many that are writing books for and about us, and you need to purchase them, and you need to buy them for yourselves and your children. Quite a few of these authors actually live in Atlanta, and a lot of the illustrators do also. And if you check inside of your books, most of you will find pictures of the authors and the illustrators so that you can connect with them. This month, of course, as Ms. Gwen mentioned, is Black History Month, and as she also said, we celebrate Black history 365 days of the year. And every year, every day, I learn something new about us and what we've done in this country and what we're still doing in this country. And that's one of the reasons why I've been an avid reader all of my life. And I hope that those of you who don't like to read will at least start reading books about people who look like you. Want to share something with you today? didn't believe in God. He believed in God. He found no other way to explain the many different ways of seeing the world. How, for instance, some observers saw people where others saw mere things. How thieves thought that they alone had souls inside them, when it was clear that everyone and everything did. Although he knew more about whispering than anyone else, how and why our people began the ritual, why they chose 7 words instead of 3. Guinea Jack's devotions depended on a pair of simple wooden carvings. They stood for all of his ancestors, he told me, and more. He called them Mother Ruth and Father Ruth. When I bow to them, I honor all of nature, he used to say. The gods began the world in 7 days, he said, but everyone knows they didn't complete it. They left parts of it undone for people to build themselves. You understand? The world is never done. It is always becoming. See that leaf on that tree out there? It wasn't there yesterday, so that isn't the same tree. You're brand new too every day. But you can tell the difference between brand new and same old, I told him. I was a stolen yesterday. Woke up this morning and here I am, still in hell. Tell us something. Thieves make up, son. Careful, or you'll take on all their foolishness. You don't belong to them unless you think this life is yours for all eternity. Part of you has been stolen, yes, but part of you is free as long as you can dream of something else. When you give that up, you're theirs for true. Remember, son, we come from strong. Strong, I repeat. Yes, he said, nodding. There's no better word for the gods who made us. Will this ever be over? In time, when the thieves find something else worth stealing. And then what? They'll tell the stolen that they dreamed it all up. That's the worst thing, that the worst things never happen. And this is a quote from a book by Jabari Sim called Yonder. It is a love story that's set during the times of our people being enslaved in this country. And it has now become my second favorite book of all time. And that's saying a lot. Just wanted to share 2 more with you. This is a book called Dear Readers, A Love Letter to Libraries. There is a library right next door where you cannot check out books, but you can see wonderful books. And then there's one up the street called the Central Library. And there are so many more books now about people who look like us in our libraries that you can take advantage of. And then this is a book about our Black national anthem. It's about 5 generations of family who teach their children and their grandchildren the words to lift every voice and sing. And then they model that throughout their lives. So, as I said before, there are so many different books about so many of us, and you all need to start reading them if you haven't already. And I'll close with a quote by one of my favorite writers whose birthday is this week coming up, Toni Morrison. She said, "I didn't fall in love. I rose to love."
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, give it up for Miss Angela Reed. Wasn't that exquisite? You know what? If you are not loving reading, you're not doing something right. Because, gosh, in between the covers of a book, you can go miles and miles and miles away. It opens up your imagination to so much. Whatever you do, this is a grand opportunity. Every book that she has is beautiful. Make sure you get yours today. Now, without further ado, it is the moment that you all have been waiting for. Our absolutely incredible Youth Cabinet President, Soraya Cornegay. This woman, yes, this very young woman, is truly phenomenal. She attends Eagles Landings High School, and she is well off to a grand future. You may see her today, but you're going to see her in many places in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our moderator this morning, Miss Soraya Cornegay.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well this morning. You guys hear me? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Before I begin, I would like to make sure that all the youth in here know you can sign up for committees for the youth cabinet. Back there, there's event coordinator, membership committee, communications, and community. So before I introduce our special guest for the Stewart Foundation's Black History Month program, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit more about her. After retiring from the city of Atlanta after 36 years, Susan J. Ross, or Sue Ross, now pursues her passion for documentary and fine art photography full-time as the photo griot, Atlanta's photocultural historian. Sue managed the city's small business development program, training over 500 small minority and female firms while serving as the unofficial city photographer over the administrations of all 6 African American mayors. She is a founding member of Sistography, the collection of African American women photographers. Sue has exhibited her photography widely since 1985 with Zone 3, Sistography, African Americans for the Arts, and many others. Recent exhibits include The World of Toni Morrison at the Auburn Avenue Research Library, Sistography Selects at Buzz Coffee and Wine House, The Beauty of a Woman at Hugo Brooks Gallery, She Wrote at the Arts Exchange, In Conversation, Visual Meditations on Black Masculinity at the African American Museum, and African American Presidential Medal honorees. Her photo was the cover photo for Trendsetters to Trendsetters magazine. Her photo, She Rose, was featured in the For the People photo mural exhibit along Auburn Avenue. The Office of the Cultural Affairs honored Sue in the 2018 Elevate Atlanta SWAT's Artist mural in Southwest Atlanta. Rolling Out magazine awarded Sue the 2019 Social Justice Award at Sisters with Superpowers. The Arts Exchange named Sue the 2019 Arts and Justice Bridge Builder at the Eben Dooley Awards. The Atlanta Business League honors Susan's lifetime achievements by induction in the Women's Hall of Fame at the 2019 Super Tuesday Women of Vision Breakfast. In 2021, Sue was named a Remarkable honoree, and her work was in the Remarkable exhibit at Zuko Gallery. She was named a 2021 Jazz Hero by the Jazz Journalists Association for her documentation of jazz in Atlanta. At this time, I would like everybody to direct their heads to the screen and a video will play.
Of security people on top of every roof.
When Nelson Mandela first stepped off the plane to Atlanta for the very first time, Sue Ross was there.
So Harry Belafonte was traveling with Mandela, so he and his wife got off of the plane first.
When Mandela met with the King family for the very first time, Sue Ross was there too.
And then we started on a whirlwind day, because once we got in those limousines, it was like, shoo.
And when Maynard Jackson rose his fist in solidarity with Mandela for the very first time, well, you know the rest.
Initially, Winnie and Nelson Mandela raised their fists, and then gradually it spread across the room.
Ross was and still is the unofficial official photographer for the city of Atlanta.
There was an electric atmosphere all over the city. Everyone wanted to see him.
And if a picture's worth 1,000 words, then these 2 volumes of photographs are the Library of Congress of Mandela's visits to Atlanta.
It was almost unimaginable to see this man stride out of prison and stride freely into this country.
She says she was struck by Mandela's easy smile and approachable manner.
I was able to see someone that was one of my heroes accomplish what we thought was impossible. And it inspires us to know that each one of us can make a difference.
Now, Ross says in her capacity as a photographer, she's gotten to meet all kinds of famous people who come to Atlanta, but to meet the one who inspired your life, well, that's something you just never forget.
Susan J. Ross is a photo griot with a specialization in documenting images which portray the comings and goings of the African American community, cultural, political, social, and economic. In the African tradition, the griot is the oral historian, holding the essence of African history and culture through the word. Sue Ross, the photo griot, uses photographs to tell the stories of the African American community. Okay. I would like you guys to put your hands together again for the queen herself, Miss Sue Ross.
Hello? There we go. Okay, okay. All right.
First question, how are you this morning?
I was cold when I was outside, but I'm doing very well now. Okay, we got a little feedback. All right.
Well, the first question that I want to ask you is who or what has had the most significant influence on you deciding to become a photographer?
Wow. I would have to say that would be, well, I was always one who took pictures. You know, I had a Brownie camera, I had a Polaroid camera, I had an Instamatic camera, I had a variety of cameras that, so I took pictures, you know, as a kid, but not anything professionally or anything like that. As a matter of fact, I've never actually gone to school for photography. All my training is in political science and public administration and communications. And so I started taking, I didn't even have a 35 millimeter camera until actually after I had finished college and grad school, and that all of that was in political science, and so when Andy Young became mayor, he had been the UN ambassador, and he had traveled all over the world and met people from all around the world, and when he became mayor, I was hired as part of his administration, and in a capacity of dealing with minority and small businesses. But Andy, when he left the UN, they gave him a book with 35 pictures for all the places he had been all over the world. And he didn't have any other record of his time as ambassador. And he said, you know what, we're going to buy some cameras and we're going to all document our administration, because there was no city photographer position at that time. So all of us, there were about 4 of us, and we all, you know, bought cameras with our own money and started taking pictures, Andy included. Andy is actually a very good photographer as well. And so that began my career as an unofficial city photographer. I also, that concurrent with that, about the same time, some of the major cultural institutions of the city were born. The National Black Arts Festival, the Hammond's House Museum. And I worked with all of those on my off time. I worked with the cultural institutions of the city and documented a lot of what was going on in cultural activities, in dance and film and visual arts, music, you know, whatever there was that was cultural, I enjoyed documenting it. So that's kind of what kicked me off on this current journey, where I have documented the city and the people and the events for the last 40-some years.
I guess I'm supposed to use this now. So would you say that the story you told us, would you say that you chose this career or did it choose you?
Oh, it definitely chose me. I didn't, as a matter of fact, I've never thought of having a career as a photographer or as an artist. one thing, when I was younger, I took pictures so I could write people's names on the back of them and remember people's names. That was a good way of remembering who was there. But it was a way of, for me, it was a way of just kind of documenting the things we did, from being in plays to participating in demonstrations to going to hear different scholars speak. And I just took, and parties, you know. You never know where your friends are going to end up. Some of the folks that I went to college with are now college presidents, are now, one was a deputy attorney general, lawyers, doctors, community organizers. And so the people that you're hanging out with now, if you're hanging with the right people, they're going to go on to become people that shape the country. When I was at Stanford, I was coordinator of the, while I was in grad school, I had to have a job. So I was coordinator of the African American Studies program and the Committee for Black Performing Arts. And one of my interns was Mae Jemison, who of course became the first black woman astronaut. Two others were Dr. Cheryl Goffney, and who is now a leading gynecologist in the city, Ken Nunn, who is a major sports and entertainment attorney. And you just never know. These are people that you know socially, but they are actually going to go on to become great in their own right. So if you're hanging with the right people, you know, take pictures of them. And it's a good way for you to have a memory of what you've done.
Of course, absolutely. Take pictures, guys, and hang with the right people. So those are our lessons. Let's say, which photo or photos, I guess, has had the most effect on you, and how has it shaped and changed your viewpoint on life?
Well, I would say, the series that was referred to in the news story on Nelson Mandela. When I was in college and grad school, we worked actively in the anti-apartheid movement. We saw the parallels between the Southern struggle for freedom and the struggle for freedom in Southern Africa, not just South Africa, Mozambique, Angola, and Zimbabwe. And so we were very involved in the struggle. A lot of South Africans lived in Atlanta in exile and were our links to the movement. And so to see the fruits of that, when Mandela first became free, he came on a 4-city tour, and Atlanta, of course, was one of the cities he visited. And I was able to document both of Mandela's visits to Atlanta in 1990 and 1993. And he used the Atlanta visit also as a means of fundraising for his run for president of South Africa. That's another set of connections. You know, the people you meet while you're in college doing demonstrations, they may go on to run countries. They may go on to, you know, become ministers in the government at a later point in time. So it's good to expand your horizons locally and internationally. But that's probably that was probably my most fulfilling set of pictures. Now, I would have to say I have two photographs that are probably my most famous photographs, and that's one of black women writers at the inauguration of Janetta Cole, and that one flashed briefly on the screen. But it was women whose writings have shaped my life in many ways: Gwendolyn Brooks, Toni K. Bambara, Sonia Sanchez, Mari Evans. They were all here when Janetta Cole was inaugurated as the first black woman president of Spelman. They had a symposium and the program honoring them. And so the picture I took of them hangs in Spelman, but it's also been used in books. Dr. Cole is using it for her foundation now. That photo every Women's History Month, it comes up all over Facebook and Twitter. And the second one would be my She Rose photo with 3 women who were best friends, but they shared an unlikely bond. And that is Coretta Scott King, Myrlie Evers Williams, and Betty Shabazz. So that's the widows of Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, and Martin Luther King. They actually were great friends, and they often got together here in Atlanta, or they took trips together sometimes. Actually, I think Maya Angelou paid for the first trip. They took all 3 together, and where they all bonded. And I got a chance to take a series of pictures of them. And so one of them has been blown up big, like about 10 feet by 30 feet, and it was hanging up on one of the walls on Auburn Avenue. So a lot of people saw it while it was up in an exhibit as a mural. So those are some of my favorite photographs. Of course, I love jazz. You know, jazz is one of my major outlets, and so I always photograph jazz musicians. So I've got a number of jazz photos, and you all get to look at the photos later on after we have the conversation. But the moment when you can capture the musician in connection with the audience and with the music is just priceless. Yeah.
You've been hanging around the superstars, all the history makers. So when you first started taking photos up until now, what or how have you grown spiritually, culturally? How have you grown from the very first moment up until now?
Well, I gradually evolved into my role as the photo griot. In the African culture, the griot tells the stories of our history. In West Africa, the griots can tell the stories of their villages, of their country, going back hundreds of years. And so what I've tried to do is document what has happened in Atlanta over the last 50 years. You know, we have, I grew up in Atlanta, and when I went to school, schools were segregated. I went to all-black elementary school. It was an excellent school. It was actually one of the best schools I'd gone to. Many of the teachers, because they couldn't teach other places, they were actually college professors, and they, trained us very well. But I participated while I was in high school in the integration of the schools here in Atlanta, and then Atlanta is what I call a magical city. It's a magical city because it's possible to see problems, analyze them, organize, and make change. And this is a city where we have made changes over my lifetime. And it is to go from where I was in a segregated elementary school to actually working in City Hall for a black mayor is a major transformation. To be able to work in programs where I could assist small minority and female businesses who could not do business with the city before Maynard Jackson became mayor. There was no black firms, no women-owned firms doing business with the city of Atlanta. It was it was a good old boy network. It was all reserved for the white firms. So to be in a city administration where you're making those kinds of changes and making it possible in business, in the arts, in whatever, in many areas for blacks, women, Latinos, other ethnicities to take part in the political and economic processes of the city, well, that's a major change over time. And so we want to be able to tell that story, but also to tell the story that the people who started this change were young, like you. You know, the people, when I was when I was in elementary school, the kids that were in SNCC were like 10 years older than me. They were teenagers. They were 16, 17, 18. They were going out around the South and getting arrested. They were going around. I mean, they used to come home on the weekends and tell us what, where they had a demonstration. These are people like Julian Bond, whose father lived next door to me, and who was kind of the grandfather for all of the kids in our neighborhood. People like Lonnie King, people like Dr. Rosalind Pope, who passed earlier this week, people who were young but made a change. Rosalind Pope, she was so impactful that she wrote the Appeal for Human Rights. They attributed it to the guys, but she actually did write it. And she just passed earlier this week. We had her service, but she's somebody you should look up and Google and read the document, because she wrote it and Julian typed it. He did not write the document. But just to say, she was, 20 years old. She was president of the senior class at Spelman. She was, and she had a chance to go to Europe on a Mellon Fellowship for her junior year, take a junior year abroad. She was a concert pianist, and the freedom that she enjoyed in Paris, she did not enjoy in Atlanta. And so when she came back, and Lonnie and Julian started talking about doing what Ernie and them had done in the sit-ins in Greensboro, she was all for it, and she wrote the intellectual foundation on which they did the movement. So these are young people just like you and me, They are people that are not, they were not afraid to make change. They could have just gone through Spelman, gone through Morehouse, gone through Clark, and moved into jobs on Auburn Avenue. You could have worked for Atlanta Life, or you could have worked for the black banks, or you could have worked in real estate, but you couldn't work for the big corporations. So they made change where we could eat anywhere, we could sleep anywhere, we could go anywhere, and we could do anything. And that's done by young people. So it's important to recognize that you can be an agent for change, to be that change agent, to be that person that makes the difference.
Absolutely. I hope you all are taking in all this wisdom. My next question is, so as a black woman yourself, what were some of the struggles that you personally had to go through, and how did you get through those?
Well, there are, a lot of times women are not, initially women were not considered for the same jobs as men. One of the big changes that Maynard made that is not as well known as some of the others is that he insisted that the corporations in Atlanta integrate their upper management and jobs for men and women. And he appointed women to be heads of departments in city government. Well, those kinds of jobs were rough. I was not. I was the deputy director in contract compliance, but those jobs, when you go into a non-traditional job, when you're the first, it's not easy. The people you have to supervise may not want to work for you. So there are things like that. But you have people, you have mentors, people like Shirley Franklin. Shirley Franklin, of course, you may know, was mayor of Atlanta, but before she was mayor of Atlanta, she was in Maynard's administration, she was the second head of the Department of Cultural Affairs, as it was known then in the city. And then when Andy became mayor, she became his chief administrative officer. She ran city government for Andy. Andy had vision and policy, and he knew what he wanted to do, and Shirley implemented it. So she was a major influence on me. Plus, she lived around the corner. These people live right here in Atlanta, right in your neighborhood. So you can walk down any street in Atlanta, and you're gonna find somebody who is a expert in some field, who is a leader in some area, and learn from these folks, follow them, work with them, volunteer. And we also bonded around working on working on political campaigns. We all worked on Maynard's campaign, on Andy's campaign. As years came, people split. Some people worked for John Lewis, some people worked for Julian Bond in that race. But what you do in those volunteer capacities is build your organizational skills and build your capacity for networking and your influencers. And so as a woman in politics, my mentor was probably Shirley Franklin. In the arts, in education, it was probably Janetta Cole, and I didn't go to Spelman, but Janetta was an anthropologist like my dad, so I knew her since I was young. She had a big influence on me, in the arts, probably Stephanie Hewley, who was the artistic director for the Black Arts Festival for many, many years. And through working, through learning from these folks, through meeting their networks, that sort of thing, you learn what kinds of things you can do and discover your own path for making things happen. Mm-hmm.
Amazing. So you've already answered a bunch of the, given me a bunch of answers for the question I was going to ask.
That's
what
okay.
advice? But what advice, other advice, I guess, would you give to this upcoming generation?
Be the change. You have agency. You as a young person are just starting out in this world, but you can make a difference in what this world looks like 20, 30 years from now. The things you do now can set things in motion. I encourage you to become active. I encourage you to volunteer with organizations. Of course, the Stewart Foundation is a great organization to volunteer with. But because get in positions where you can develop leadership, where you can become an officer, or where you can become a community organizer, or where you can become just a leader. Even if if you're in the Scouts, be the best scout, whatever. Go into student government and be a officer in student government. Form bonds with other people that think like you and that want to do things like you, and do them. You're at an age where you don't have to do. You need to listen to adults, but you don't have to do everything they say, and you may not think of things the same way. So you can influence things. You can influence politics. You can influence city policy. You can influence. The mayor has declared this the year of the youth. Well, he's talking about y'all. So hold him accountable. He's a young mayor, a new mayor. I'm very proud of him. I've known him for a long time. But like any mayor, he ain't perfect. Everything Maynard did was not great. Everything Andy did was not great. Sometimes they made mistakes. So you can challenge the leadership, and in the process, you become a leader yourself.
Amazing. So challenge yourselves, guys. Challenge others. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So now in today's society, in light of recent events, and then 30, 40 years ago, what differences or similarities do you see?
Differences. We have overcome the legal barriers to segregation, but we haven't overcome the legacies of slavery and apartheid in America, which is really what the period of segregation was about. It's the equivalent of South African apartheid, dividing people on the basis of race and saying that only people of a certain race could do certain things. So we have, one of the challenges, I can ride in the front of the bus now. I can ride on an airplane. I can do, I can be elected president. But there still are challenges of building generational wealth. You know, this country was built on the backs of black people. Our labor, our forced labor, created wealth for white families. There is, I know a number of young people are involved in the calls for reparations and all like that, because, you know, when you look at how people build generational wealth, they build it because they own land, they're able to pass that on to their children, or they own businesses, which they're able to pass on to their children. Well, if all of your labor is going to building somebody else's business, your family's not going to get anything when you're done. So, you know, you have to look at the ways that you can build wealth and pass it on. It is so the legal barriers are gone, but the economic barriers are still there still is a need to struggle on the economic barriers. There are other changes. Women, when I was growing up, women had, you know, like 3 professions. You could be a nurse, a teacher, or a social worker. The corporate world was not open to you. Now we have women running major corporations. Now you have Rihanna, who is an entertainer, but more than an entertainer, she's a businesswoman, and she's the second richest woman, black woman in the world, you know, not because of her entertainment business, but because of her cosmetics and other related businesses. So look for opportunities. You know, opportunities are out there to be seized, and look for something you can do better than anyone else, or that you like to do better than anyone else. Find your passion and pursue it, you know. And you may be our next billionaire. But so there are a lot of opportunities available to women that were not available when I was a child. I had strong female role models, but they were in prescribed areas. And then they began to break barriers into different fields. Another difference, let me see, what else? The internet. We didn't have the internet. We did not have the internet. And the internet has good and bad sides. You know, there are the opportunity to interact with people all over the world through your phone, through your cell phone. You know, your cell phone is a small computer that you can carry around. And it's I was able to be on a Zoom the other day with one of my friends from South Africa who I met actually in Kenya when we were kids, because her family was in exile in Kenya, and my dad was there. He had a Ford Fellowship to go abroad for a summer, and we while we were in Kenya, we spent most of our time with the South African community. But now, before we had to write letters, and you know, it would take a week and 10 days or a month to get there. But now we can call each other, we can Zoom, we can collaborate on projects, all because of the access of the internet and telecommunications. And there's so many new forms of communication coming up. You know, there's the whole video world, the whole multiverse, the whole artificial intelligence things. I mean, there's so many new frontiers that are open now that were not open when we were kids.
Wow.
Do y'all know how to write, you know, cursive? I know. They told me they don't teach that anymore. I had that would always spoil my report card. They told me I should be a doctor because my penmanship was not up to par. I would have all A's, and then if the teacher liked me, she would give me an A in penmanship, but we all knew it was a lie. Miss Watley did not lie. She gave me a C- in penmanship. I had all A's and a C- in penmanship. That was just really crushing. But, you know, I just didn't take my time writing out my letters, but I can do it. And, you know, it's I don't know how the whole thing with signatures is going to work. I know you can do a digital signature, but how do you ensure that's your signature on the document? And so, those are challenges that are opening up now. But those are some of the things that are different.
Wow. I think I was I don't know, I'm 18, maybe the last part of this generation that they still talk cursive, but I know how to do it, kind of. So you've seen incredible things, you've met amazing, incredible people. Is there anything that you regret doing or not doing during your career?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Doing or not doing? I did not finish my PhD, and I really probably should go back and do that. I was studying for a PhD at Stanford, and my mother became sick with breast cancer, and I came back for what I thought was a summer, and it turned out to be the rest of my life. I never went back to Stanford after that. My mother got progressively. She was a very early. She had an early. Well, she was in her 60s, but she had an aggressive form of breast cancer, and it just I just didn't have the opportunity to go back. And then, I started working, and I got involved in my jobs, and I loved my jobs, and I just never went back to academia. So I may, at this advanced age of 70, go back and finish my doctorate at some point in time. But that's the only thing I can think of, really, that I regret. I think all of some choices you make, and some choices the Creator makes for you. And so doors shut, but other doors open. So always look for the open door, the open window, the path that you want to follow.
Absolutely. So, going back to the advice thing, what advice would you give to your younger self at any point in time?
To my younger self. Probably to write more journals. I really wish I had written journals as coming along, because I participated in a lot of things that were changed, and I've documented them through my photographs, but I didn't write them down. Like some friends, like Pearl Clegg, she wrote journals. She's a poet and playwright and all of that, and she wrote journals like every day. I occasionally did that, but I wish I had done that more. I think that's the main thing, and probably to finish my degree, my doctorate. That would probably be the other thing. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna start journaling too. I'm just writing a lot, my mind moves faster than my hand. So, this is the last question that I have for you. Okay. What have you enjoyed most? What are you most proud of, either personally or the things that you have done throughout your career?
Well, what I'm most proud of probably is working with the Small and Minority and Female Business Program in Atlanta, because I've been able to give back and help other people achieve economic success in that program. And that's also something that you always have to do. The philosophy of each one, teach one. You have to, once you've accomplished something, you have to bring other people along, and make sure that you reinvest yourself in the community through younger people.
So if you guys could give it up for Miss Sue Ross. At this time, first, if any of our youth, do you have any questions for her? Tyler?
Throughout what's happening today and the attempt to discredit and erase Black history, what can our generation do to preserve that?
first thing you can do is know your history. So you need to read. You need to take these books and learn. And then you need to organize, because this country is in a struggle for the future of America. And there are a lot of people who are trying to take things back to the way they used to be. And Black history is one thing they're trying to destroy, because they want to destroy your self-confidence. And they know if you learn Black history, you're going to see the amazing things that our people have achieved in spite of unimaginable obstacles. And so you know you can do it too. So you need to organize. As a young person, you can't vote yet, but you can help other people vote, and you can help other people understand what the importance of the issues are. And then you might have to do what we had to do, back in the day, which is study Black history and things like that on your own. You can go to the library and check out books. You can organize book clubs. You can, we used to run freedom schools on Saturdays sometimes for younger people when I was in college. And we would have Saturday classes on Black history, as well as, basic things like math and reading. So and then you can encourage your parents to vote for people that will will vote for the kinds of things we want to do. Because, really, if you look at this country, the country is deeply divided. We are in danger of slipping back into a nation of close to tyrants. I mean, I know we probably aren't supposed to get too political on this, but you have to recognize that the kinds of forces that people like Donald Trump stir up are the same kind of people that lynched people on Auburn Avenue. They're stirring up the worst fears of ignorant people, people that hate other people basically because they think they have more, they're getting things that they should have had, when in reality the poor white people and poor Black people have more in common than they think. It's just that politicians choose to pit people against each other, and we have to look for ways to bring people together and to move together. And it is vitally important for young people to be involved in those struggles. Vitally important, because you are the next generation. You have to find allies in other communities to work with, so that we can make real change, so that we can ensure the progress we have doesn't slip back. I don't want to go back to an Atlanta where I can only go to things on one side of town. I don't want to go back to that. I want us to move forward. And that's an important thing for you all to recognize. So the struggle for Black history, that's going on in Florida. They have a really terrible governor who is really opposed to people being knowledgeable. He's, when they say they don't want people to teach things that makes them uncomfortable, well, these things happened. I mean, Black history is American history. Atlanta in 1906 had one of the most severe race riots of any place in the country, but it's not taught much in Georgia schools. I don't think it's in your Georgia history class, the 1906 race riots, but you need to learn about it, and you need to make sure other people know about it. The one of the last public lynchings was here in Georgia in that they call the Moores Ford lynchings in Madison County, which is only 2 hours up the road. And it was a so these are things that are in our recent history that we need to make sure people know about, and that people can the struggle for, if they take Black history out of schools. What's going to be the next thing they take out of schools? You know, what are they going to take out? They're going to take out music and art, things that encourage you to think. You know, it's we can have school. We can teach our own. We can do that through our churches, through our organizations, and all. But we pay taxes. We pay for these schools. We deserve to have our history in these schools.
Absolutely. Does anybody else have any questions? You get Jamarcus, do you want to come and ask a question?
Okay, so sorry.
It's okay.
I know you talked a little bit about Nelson Mandela coming to Atlanta twice. I was just kind of wondering, like, how was your experience, like, being able to see people like that just in person, being able to take those kind of photos, being a part of history? Like, what was like? What's your thought process when you were able to go through that?
Well, it was exhilarating in many ways. You know, Mandela had been in prison for so many years and had been able to lead his nation's struggle from inside the bars based on the work that other people did outside to keep his name alive and his program alive, and to actually see him, you know, walk off that plane was just unbelievable. You know, it's like when Maynard got elected mayor or something like that. You know, when you see something happen that hasn't happened before, when you knew somebody was coming who was going to change the fate of their country. He wasn't president yet, but we all knew that if they had free elections, then he would most likely be elected. So it was kind of an unbelievable experience. He was a very gracious man, very soft-spoken, but firm in his resolve, you know, and that was a pretty incredible experience. But, you know, growing up in Atlanta, you're going to meet people like that all the time. In this area, well, for example, you know, I grew up with the young people in the King family, right? They were not famous people when I was a child. You know, they just lived down the street. You know, we had birthday parties together and things like that. Well, people that you have birthday parties with may go on to change the world. You know, they may go on to lead movements, to head centers, but it's you making the choice to see people that are doing good things and associating and working together to make things better. Mm-hmm.
Cameron, our communications chair.
I just wanted to know what era affected your photos the most, or which era impacted, like, what photos you took the most?
Well, I think I don't know. You know, kind of being an unofficial city photographer, you have to do a lot of photographs for the city. So there's a lot of things that are what we would call the grip and grin shots. You know, the ribbon cuttings and the public meetings and the community happenings. So there are those things. There are photographs you take to document the progress of programs and the progress of what you're doing. The photographs I love the most, though, you know, tend to be the cultural photographs, the photographs of the jazz musicians or of the poets and the writers and the dancers. And so the things that involve our heritage and culture. Those I really love to take. But you know, over time, it's all important. It's all important documentation. And so I'm going to invite you all to, when we finish talking, to come see these photographs. I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of them. And should I do that now, or yeah, let me do that now. I'm just going to walk over here and show you all some things. There's a variety of photos in each of these notebooks that you can look through. This is the She Rose photo I was talking. I mean the Sistren photo I was talking about earlier. The black women writers, all of the women at Janetta Cole's inauguration. Here's Dr. Maya Angelou. Now, when I first met her, she was already a poet, but she was not known as the Maya Angelou. She had a book of poetry and an autobiography, but she was somebody who came to Atlanta and stayed at our friend Dr. Richard Long's house and wrote books, you know. So and over the years, she became more famous, but she also influenced generations of students at Wake Forest. And then, you know, when she did the inaugural poem for Bill Clinton, she became known to the world. But I was privileged to know her since I was a teenager. And so I have many photographs of her over the years. I think there's one probably in, let's see. Yeah. So this one. Oh, is it, hello? Yeah. This one goes back to like 1988, to the beginning of the National Black Arts Festival. And that's her. And this is my friend Varnett Honeywood. I don't know if y'all saw the Cosby Show, but a lot of her paintings were on the Cosby Show. So you can look at that. Then what down here, this photo was taken right here in the Apex. This is three black mayors. They were having a press conference, I think on affirmative action at the time. And so this is Andrew Young, Maynard Jackson, and Bill Campbell, who was the mayor at that time when this was taken. This is the rabble-rouser, Jose Williams. And Jose was a part of SCLC. He was part of the field crew, although he was actually a chemist. He was a chemical engineer and owned his own companies. But he also went on to found Jose's Feed the Hungry and Homeless, and that is continued by his family to this day. This is another person you should know. This is Herman Russell. I don't know, have any of y'all seen the Building Atlanta film, the documentary? If not, we need to get them to get it and show it to you. Herman Russell grew up in the Summerhill area, but he has gone on to shape the way Atlanta looks. He has built buildings all over this city and was one of the most successful black businessmen, and expanded from construction to real estate development to airport concessions, and he now Generation 2 and Generation 3 are leading those companies that he built. But as a matter of fact, he built Atlanta City Hall. And this is a march on Auburn Avenue with Reverend Gerald Durley and Andrea Young, who's head of the Georgia ACLU, and other leaders. So I'm just encouraging you to get involved. Protect your power, protect your voting rights, make it happen. So then, so there's just a variety of pictures here. This is Pearl Primus, who is a very famous dancer and anthropologist. She had her own dance company. She was getting her degree in anthropology when my dad was getting his at Columbia. And he said that she convinced the people at Columbia that dance was a language. So she got out of the foreign language requirement by teaching them the language of dance. And he said when she did her you have to defend your thesis and all like that. And he said to defend her thesis, she didn't just make a presentation. She had African drums, and then she made a 8-foot vertical leap into the room to start an African dance. So she was quite a scholar and dance historian. This is Dizzy Gillespie, who came here often for the Atlanta Jazz Festival, and he's the one. If you see him with his cheeks out, he had big cheeks when he was blowing. He had his own technique for playing the trumpet. and he would be. I can't make my cheeks go out like theirs, but his are amazing. But there's all kinds of people in here, and you can, as you look through there, you can ask me about any of them. This one, of course, is the great trumpet player Miles Davis. He's one of my favorite jazz musicians, and this was in 1989. He came and did a concert for the Jazz Festival in Grant Park. And there were so many people in Grant Park, they were hanging from the trees. I tell you, there were a lot of people there. And he just had a good time. He was a weird guy. I mean, I'd been to concerts before where he would play the whole concert with his back to the audience and just playing to his musicians. But he was having a good time that day. He played for 2 hours. It was great. Yeah. So just come up and take a look at these pictures, and then you can ask me about the people and take advantage of whatever cultural activities you can get involved in, that you can go to, that you can volunteer with, and you'll get to meet some of these people too.
So, I don't know about you guys, but I definitely learned a lot today. I'm gonna start by making some good friends, keeping them in my corner, and we're going to do our best to get involved. At this time, okay, so I just want to remind everybody else again that the youth, you can sign up for our committees in the back, like we were talking about, getting involved and helping to make change. So you can start by signing up for event coordinator committee, community communications, and also membership. And now I want to call Miss Gwen, our executive director, back up.
Give Miss Sue Ross another round of applause. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Wasn't she extraordinary? I know she dropped some significant dimes. If you weren't inspired to be the best you can be, if you were not inspired to know that you are truly the future and you can make the difference, oh my goodness, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And that's what Sue has done. Documented those people in the process of doing those extraordinary things and knowing that you can too. And give it up for our moderator, our host, our beautiful, our intellectually gifted President Soraya Cornegay. My goodness, there are individuals that have come in this place to make this substantial for you. I've got to give it up for Atlanta Heights Charter. If you are with Atlanta Heights Charter, please stand. Please stand. Hey, that's right. Thank you so much, Chris. Oh my goodness, you all look beautiful. Thank you for spending your morning with us. There is so much more to come. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Stewart Foundation. Please make sure you go to our website. There is an application there. We would love for you to join forces with us. There is never anything that you have to pay for to be a part of this organization. We just want to enrich your minds, your body, and your soul. Thank you once again for joining us. Give it up for John Williams. John comes on a consistent basis to make sure that our programs are streamed live. Give it up for our technical director, Mr. Jason Miller. Yes, and give it up for our IT director, Mr. Jerome Potts, who are always in the house, always enriching us and always blessing us. Our extraordinary registration department, which is headed by Miss Margie Preston. Give it up for them. Our volunteer director, Miss Tanya Evans. Thank you so much, Tanya. Miss June Estelle and Miss Aquila, thank you so much for always taking care of our youth officers and for all of the Stewart Foundation volunteers, staff, board. We appreciate you. We love you because you're doing what needs to be done, and that is investing in our future. Thank you all so very much. There are so many things I'm sure that you all want to ask our incredible Sue Ross, and then we want to also give it up for our literary director, Miss Angela, because she's always gifting us with those beautiful, beautiful books. And Mr. Moore, once again, he is going to be throughout the museum. We want you to take an opportunity to go throughout the museum and check out what we have for you. Mr. Stewart is actually in Philadelphia today. So if you all would turn to the camera, everybody turn to the camera and wave at Mr. Stewart over in Philly while he does his thing, right? So extraordinary programs happening throughout the U.S. for Black history, and he is doing his part because he's real big about Hey, if we don't take our turn, it is our fault if we don't care for what needs to be cared for now. So this is a now generation. You're not too young to make power moves. So make power moves. First, we want you to enrich your knowledge. So get up, come ask Sue some questions, take a look at the photographs, and please make a way throughout the museum and learn something new, because I know you all are getting some extra credit today by being here today. So make sure you level up with knowledge. Thank you once again for attending another Stewart Foundation event.
Before y'all go, I want to take
Black National Anthem. Tyler, come on up. Tell us about the Black National Anthem. If everybody would stand in honor, Tyler is going to tell us about the author of the Black National Anthem.
Good morning, everybody. So, the iconic Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing a Song, was written by a man named James Johnson. James Johnson was born in was born was born in 1871 in Jacksonville, Florida. He was raised by his mother and father. His mother influenced him heavily at a young age by passing down her passion and love for music and literature. Shortly after, he went on to college, which was at Atlanta University, which is a historically black college, which you may know now today as Clark Atlanta University. After attending college and graduating, he moved back to his hometown and began teaching at Stanton University. After teaching, hello, all right. While still being a principal, he began studying the law, and he became the first black man to be admitted into the Florida bar ever since Reconstruction, the first black man. While still juggling all of this responsibility, he found time to write songs and poems, including Lift Every Voice and Sing, which was in honor of Abraham Lincoln's birthday. Now, this song that he is most famously known for writing has immeasurable value, because this song was created at a crucial time in history when Jim Crow laws were still being upheld. And when Jim Crow laws were still being upheld, and so Jim Crow laws were still being upheld, and then this song gave them hope and an identity that they could look towards, because this song spoke joyfully about the hope and the resilience of black people after rising above discrimination and slavery. And it celebrated their newfound freedom. Even though this is his most notable work, this is not his only feat. In 1901, him and his brother moved to New York and began writing songs for musical theater. They wrote over 200 songs for Broadway, and at the same time, James was making connections with powerful black members of the black community, and these same connections led him to become treasurer of the Black Republican Club, as well as the U.S. Consul for Venezuela and Nicaragua. Shortly after leaving the diplomatic scene, he began his work in the civil rights movement in 1916 as field secretary for the NAACP. In this work, he opened branches, extended memberships, and even fought and campaigned for an federal anti-lynching bill. This bill was only passed last year, 100 years after his campaign, which shows that the black community is still fighting for equality to this day. In 1920, he was promoted to executive secretary, and he used this new and larger platform to fight against segregation as well as voter disenfranchisement in the South. Throughout his entire career, James believed in a philosophy that black Americans should generate exquisite forms of literature and art to display their equality to whites in the terms of intellect as well as creativity. Sadly, in 1938, at the age of 67, he tragically lost his life in a fatal car accident, not only leaving this world, but as well his mark on the black history.
Wait. Madam President asked Tyler to just share some history on the author, and he committed that to memory. Wasn't that impressive? I mean, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. He's like, and he hates public speaking. But if you don't do it, right, you won't be able to perfect it. So let me share this with you. Never say no. I want you to get a mindset of exploring the possibility of yes. Until you put yourself out there, you never know what you can accomplish or what you can do. Break through the barriers of fear. We all have fear, but do it anyway. Tyler, that was exquisite. You will make him so proud. So with that then being said, do I have a vocalist in the house? I know there's a vocalist with all of these incredible Atlanta Heights students here. I know there's someone who actually sings, because if I do it, we're going to have some issues, but I can get this thing started now. But I want this to be a pleasurable experience. So if you have that gift, and that's what's so beautiful about our people, right? That's what's so beautiful about our people. Our people are multifaceted. We all have various different gifts, talents, and abilities, right? But be willing to utilize your gifts, talents, and abilities for the upbuilding of us all. Right, so I know I've got a songbird that's in this house.
Marine.
Right. All right. So it just to lead us in the song. Where's my singer? Okay, come on up. That's what I knew I could sing. Thank you, James. Get us started. What's your name, sir?
My name is Larry Heath.
All right, get us started, Larry. We're just gonna do the first stanza.
Y'all ready? Yeah. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let us resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
I love you. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I certainly hope you all enjoyed the program. Please check out the museum. Come and check out Sue's books and pictures. And thank you very much.